Okay, so we're here with the crew from Hotspotty. Super psyched to have you guys on and to talk about the tool that you've got. I know it started as something a little bit different and certainly kind of a lot smaller, just like a foray into how do you help out on Helium, and now it's grown into something pretty big and radical. You guys have given me a quick kind of intro piece maybe last week, and I was super psyched on what you were showing me. Went into it over the last week, and I was like, man, some of the stuff that they showed me isn't here yet. I'm really excited to kind of get this thing out in the public. So I guess if one of you can start with what the intent of Hotspotty is, like why did you build it?
I guess Daniel sort of started the project, and then it kind of went from there. I don't know if you
yeah I can touch. So last year when we started getting our hotspots and deploying around Lisbon, we decided that we realized that managing all the payouts is going to be a pain in the ass. Sorry for my French. It's a lot of work. I mean, we don't have that many hotspots. I can't even imagine people have like hundreds of hotspots, like thousands. And pretty much Hotspotty was the project that I started for ourselves to help us manage our own hosts and deployments and payouts and everything like that. And I always built from the thought that if I'm gonna make it for me, I might as well make for everybody. It was very innocent project, it's at that time nobody had their own ETLs running. We just pinging everything on the public API. The API also didn't have any rate limiting. It was different times then. And then after we started building, and then after we started to finish deploying our hotspots, we realized that there's a very big demand, or it's a very big need of people to manage the deployments. And then Max joined the project to start with the analytics and then visualization. And then Alexis joined as well to do like the planning and marketing. And then it was kind of like very organic, I think, how everything started, right? And we didn't start like, okay, let's make this project. It's going to be this and this. We started with like DIY hotspots, trying to learn about everything, the whole stack of Helium, and then building slowly, trying to do some hacks. And I remember in the beginning, we had like this tiny script that just every day got how many rewards our hotspot made and send us to like a Telegram group that we had. And slowly keep on building code. And now we have like over thousands of Git pushes for all the projects that we've done. I think that's like a quick intro.
Yeah. So I think, one thing to acknowledge, certainly, Dan, is a lot of us certainly with the DIY hotspots got a ton of value out of one of your initial videos where you're like, hey, here's how to take this thing and get it working. I mean, I know I got a ton of value out of that. So it's super cool to see you taking that initial entrant into Helium and building it into a, hopefully a super successful business. I'm pumped for you guys.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was fun. I always love to teach people how to do things. And I think knowledge is something that needs to be shared somehow. So I was living pretty much on the Discord for the DIY stuff, just helping people get started, and also learning things myself, right? Like just hacking around, and it was pretty cool. Very different times than today, to be honest. Like that time there was like, I don't know, 4,000 hotspots. So there was a much smaller network for sure and community. And we're still at the beginning, even though less like 170,000 right now. I think we're still early. Much more is going to come.
Yeah, we talk about the actual the payments in terms of the development of Hotspotty, but that's like the last process, right? Actually acquiring the hardware, understanding how the network operates, optimizing the hotspots, collaborating with people, your team, perhaps installers, people who have referrals and leads. And then we built that into it. So like understanding the data is really important, and how the blockchain works, optimizing for that, and then collaborating with your team, with workspaces. And now we've worked quite a lot on collaboration with the community, so people can verify their wallets, and they can also spawn Discord channels to discuss hexagons. Obviously, if people verify their wallets, it allows all hotspots within that wallet to then be contactable by other verified users. So yeah, the community and the collaboration stuff, we've only really just started. We've kind of been in beta for about a month now, and then finally we've got the payouts. So it's kind of very simply, it's like understand, optimize, collaborate with your team and the community, and then pay out. That's the simplest way of describing the sort of A to Z of our features and our product. But yeah, Max calls himself Max RS. Even I know they've called it for Max reward scale, because Max is like the brainchild of reverse engineering the blockchain to understand exactly like the hexagons and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if Max, you want to talk a little bit about what you did with the reward scale and stuff. That's a large part of our. There's a lot of features, but the reward scale is also, you know, something that we're quite proud of and that community is using a lot.
Yeah, sure. So one thing is the payout management, which Daniel already covered in I would say the end of last year. But then on my end, I really wanted to understand for us, like, how do these rewards actually work and what's the mechanism, out of curiosity, because it's quite complex and I always like to dive in the details of these complexities and trying to understand and visualize how it exactly works. But then also, of course, to optimize our own hotspots. You know, we had a couple of hotspots and we want to squeeze the maximum out of it, like anyone else does. And what we discovered was actually something quite interesting, is that the way to optimize your hotspots is actually, it's not all in your control. Actually, most of it is defined by the environment in which your hotspots are located. And that's all governed by HIP Helium improvement proposals like HIP 17, HIP 15. And these mechanisms basically govern how a healthy network should grow. And if your hotspot provides any value, then it will be rewarded. If not, then it will be rewarded less. And to really understand like how this all works, you have to visualize these things. And that's basically where I put a lot of my effort in breaking these things down to the building blocks that make up the whole, like the bigger picture, and then visualizing those things, and then also guiding ourselves at first, but then eventually, and that's also what's now available, is guiding the whole community towards actually understanding, but also resolving these kind of underperformed areas or hotspots. So the key really is collaboration, and that's the difficult. That's basically the understanding we had after really diving into it. Is you can't really solve it by yourself. You need to collaborate with other deployers around you, because that's just the only way. That's the way the network was designed, and that was an essential part that was completely missing in the ecosystem. You had already the Discord of Helium, but then like you didn't really know who to talk to, because not everyone wasn't there, and then the people that aren't there, they don't really want to tell, hey, this is my hotspot, because then you know how much they're earning and stuff. But then what we basically came up with is a way where you can communicate and talk with each other without actually having to leak that sensible information per se. So yeah, we can showcase it maybe a bit later, but we have different structures in place to really visualize how all these things fit together, and then also guide people towards improving the situation in their area.
Cool.
Whilst also allowing the anonymity and privacy that Max touched on. So we've been quite sensitive with the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Okay, so I'm making sure I'm understanding this, is that I'm thinking of Hotspotty as doing three things, and maybe I'm missing one thing, but the first thing was kind of where it started, was basically managing your hotspots, right? So figuring out how much you're making, how much each hotspot is making, if you have a host, how much they need to be making, like all that stuff. And then as a subset of that management also, and I believe this is coming if it's not already here, is paying things out, right? So if you owe your 20% or your 50% or whatever it is, you can do that from within Hotspotty. That'll pay it out from your wallet automatically. Maybe that's not here as of today, but that's probably going to be there in the next week, month, whatever. Okay, so that's the management and payout side. And then there's a piece, so that's number one. Number two that I'm seeing is the optimization piece, which is what Max was just talking about. So it's a separate thing almost entirely. Is you've got on the one hand a fleet of hotspots, or a group of hotspots, or one hotspot, whatever it is. And then on the next hand, you've got like, how do you make those hotspots earn the maximum possible? And I'm hearing this really cool part that you guys have identified, which is not so much the technical side of understanding HIP 15 and 17, which is, it's a big lift to understand that. You know, the guy who wrote it is a rocket scientist. But that brings in the third part, which is the community aspect while maintaining privacy, which is super cool. So it's like, hey, you can only do so much for your hotspot, right? Most people are locked into their location. They have either their house or their work or grandma's house or a friend, but that's it. It's not like people have location freedom to place their hotspots. So you have to work with other people. And I think that's probably maybe the single most valuable thing I see you guys doing is enabling folks to work together while maintaining privacy. So yeah, super excited. Do you want to walk through the part that probably most people want to hear about, which is how to optimize your hotspot, and then we'll go into how to work with other folks.
Sounds good.
Cool. And am I understanding all that right, or is there a part that I missed that you guys are seeing that is missing?
I'd say the only thing that is the collaboration with your team with workspaces.
Ah, right.
So that's actually quite a big deal. So obviously, you know, you can create an account very quickly with Discord. You know, it's like super fast. If you've already got an account, it's literally just okay, and then boom, you've got your workspace. But we also facilitate the ability to add other team members, you know, by sending them an email, and if they accept, they then also get added to the same workspace. But we also have comments as well on installs, on hotspots, on locations, on a lot of the categories. And those comments, you can comment about a hotspot, you can comment about an install. There's actually quite a lot of stuff going on, and we're writing the documentation, but you can also at people in those comments. So let's say we invite 5 people to the workspace. Yeah, there might be people inputting the locations, other people assessing them, people installing them, people maintaining them and making sure that, you know, they're optimized. Yep. And all of those people who have accepted to be in that workspace, you can press the @ sign, and then it will bring up the person, and then it will send an email to them. So, you know, a lot of what is missing in deploying, it's okay maybe even deploying 10 to 50, but when you're deploying hundreds or thousands, collaboration with your team is really essential. So that's a big part.
Very cool. Okay,
that's another big part of the product.
Yeah, I missed that because I'm like a lone deployer. It's like I got my group of hotspots, and I guess I do talk to people pretty frequently who have more than 50. So this would be super helpful for them as well as for us kind of smaller players.
We wish we had this product 6 months ago for our own installs.
Yeah. But one thing that you can do, for example, even if you're like a lone wolf deployer, you can use the comment sections to send. We don't have it right now, but pretty soon we're going to start. You can send documents and pictures to each of the steps. So like, for example, you have a hotspot, you can send a picture of that hotspot, or like some document that you want to have, for example. There's a lot of things on the pipes, right?
And how would you use that, or how would I use it?
Let's say, for example, just a very practical way, you can, every time you do an install, you want to take some pictures of that install for future, because you can't remember, like, I mean, 50, maybe it's already hard to remember the 50 installs, but if you have 500, you have a team of installers spread through, different cities. So you want them, after the install, that they write like a text explaining everything that was used. They can send pictures of that install that later on you can go look and see what they've done. Like, oh, maybe they forgot to put like some tape somewhere. So it's just helping in the workspace, in the collaboration part.
Okay, I can see that being super useful.
A photo of one of those awesome solar setups you do, right? Just so that you can associate it.
Yeah. No, now I see it. That makes a lot of sense. And I guess that's a good time to bring up a hot tip for folks who are doing specifically outdoor or remote installs, or whether it's on grid or off grid, is take a picture of the inside of your box and a couple angles of the inside of the box, as well as the fancy looking antenna and solar panel. Because most of the problems that you're going to have are going to happen inside the box because you forgot some connector because you're so excited to put everything together. And then you hike out 6 miles and you realize when you get back home, like, man, did I really connect that thing? And if you've got angles or pictures of the different angles in that box, it can save you, as it did not save me because I didn't take pictures of 6 mile hike. So cool.
Yeah, and there's also the aspect prior to installation, right? It's the assessment. So let's say that your workspace also contains members that are bringing leads, like basically they're talking to people that you have a really high, tall building that you have access to, etc. So these are people that would be part of your workspace. They can add locations, they can label them, and then basically you label them, for example, as to be assessed. And then someone else can go over all these locations and assess if they want to be prioritized for an install or not. And at that point, it also makes a lot of sense to send pictures, you know, to upload pictures for that location, so that if you don't see the horizon, you know, then probably it's not one to prioritize.
Super cool. Yeah, right on. You guys have actually put some serious thought into this. This is rad. It's almost like you know what you're doing. Yeah, super cool. Okay, cool. Do you want to walk me through what it looks like to deploy a spot and use the tool?
Yeah, cool. I'll share my screen.
Enhance.
So maybe one thing to clarify as well is that Hotspotty plays an educational role as well. And for that reason, a lot of it is basically available without any need for registration. So like just clicking on a hotspot is just a matter of clicking on, well, the dot, and then you can see a lot of information related to that, but you don't need to be logged in to actually see that information. Of course, the moment you start, you want to persist data, like your whole planning or collaboration with your team members. Of course, that requires login, but the login is also just a matter of just basically signing in with Discord, and that suffices. That will automatically create a workspace for you, and that's it. Now you can start persisting data and saving. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'll go very quickly over like a brief overview, and then we can dive into the collaboration aspect, because I think that's something that people want to see. Yeah. So there's different tabs here. Most of them have the equivalent of them in the workspace. So this is the map section, which is all accessible without logging in. Then the workspace section basically is where all your persisted data lives. And this is basically one workspace, but you can create multiple workspaces and have different data contained within. So you would basically add a hotspot or a wallet, and then you basically see everything. So let's basically add a wallet, just to give an example, like green. I'm just gonna type a random upbeat green Puma, has one hotspot, save. So by adding the wallet, it will automatically track the hotspot therein, but also if there's new hotspots being added to the same wallet over time, they will all be automatically added. So that's the easiest way to basically add your data.
Cool.
So
and you did that in a way that was so easy. I think it would be easy to miss, because I missed it the first time when you showed me. Is you don't have to type in the wallet address, 11JPQ, whatever it is. You can type in any hotspot in that wallet, and it brings you every hotspot in that wallet. It's a super cool thing that was like, wow, that's way easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's contextual. So for example, if you're in the map, this is the center of the map, and this hotspot, I'm just going to click on it, early. There's many hotspots that start with early, but if you search for early, it's basically sorted by the proximity of the center of the map. So it's going to naturally be inclined to raise the hotspots that are most relevant to the location you're looking at.
Very cool.
For the workspace here. So if you're typing your name and you only know one of the 3 words of your hotspot, it's most likely you're going to catch it like that.
I was thinking, Max, perhaps we could just add another one that might have 5 in it or something, because when we look at the hotspots, it's more relevant to seeing your fleet or something.
Yeah, okay. So
so you can have multiple wallets, as you'll see.
Brown. So this has 4 hotspots.
Oh, cool. So it brings it up right away. So as soon as you start typing the name in and you select the initial hotspot, it'll say there's 6 hotspots. Are very cool. Yes, actually, if you go to any hotspot and then to info, you see the number of hotspots. That's part of the same wallet. So if you go to like another one, like this has 1 hotspot, this has 2 hotspots, this has 1 hotspot. So sure. Yeah, super cool. There's a lot of details that can be overlooked easily, but yeah,
the info tab in the hotspot is really cool. There's a lot of information there. We added few days ago also the manufacturer of the hotspot. So like you're gonna show like oh, there's a SyncroB.it and yes.
Yeah, and the syncing information as well. So if you hover over this dot, it shows you the status of syncing, which is quite useful for debugging purposes.
So will it tell you what block your hotspot is on, or is it just saying it's syncing or it's not syncing?
Yeah, so if it's completely synced, it's not going to tell the block per se. But if it's syncing like this one, apparently, it's going to say it's syncing since that much time ago, and how many blocks are still remaining to be synced. Which is the same thing as in the Helium Explorer. The Helium Explorer doesn't say this, I believe, but it just says how many hours ago.
Yeah, we decided to use the same algorithm that they implemented in Elrond.
Okay, so you're pulling from
Erlang.
From the P2P stuff. You're not going directly to that miner and saying, hey, what block are you on?
No, all the information is from the blockchain, right? There's no way for us to contact directly the hotspot.
Got it. I really want there to be a way to do that, because that'll help a lot of people solve problems.
I think probably manufacturers are going to do that manually, right? It's not going to be like a whole network thing. It's going to be individual by the manufacturer.
And we are looking at working with manufacturers to integrate all of this diagnostic stuff, which, as we all know, isn't strong enough, right? But yeah, that's in the roadmap as well.
Okay. I mean, already it's way better than what is currently available. So super cool.
Thanks. Yeah, and there's also, for example, the location of this hotspot. You can go and open it in Google Earth, for example. These are small details, but they're available for whoever needs it.
Got it. And why would you want to open it in Google Earth? Just to
Yeah, this might be, well, if a hotspot is performing very well, then it might be because he's on top of a hill or something. So you might want to inspect it. Yeah, it's more relevant for your assessment of your locations, which has the same functionality. I just saw it here, so I mentioned it, but it's not that relevant for hotspots. You're right.
Cool. And then there's something else that I used to do on Google Earth early on, is put an altitude layer at the hotspot level to see what it was covering and what it would not cover, like what would be kind of the islands in the sky around it that are going to block the signal. That's a lot simpler than the RF stuff I think you guys are going to use, but it's a neat little trick on Google Earth.
We do have something equivalent to that. So if you go to the appearance settings and you toggle on the elevation contours, it will basically show you like these are lines, and on each line, the line connects dots which are at the same height above sea level. Sure. And then here you can see it in the scale how high it is. So for example, when we were assessing one of these hotspots, or at least locations, we were assuming that it would communicate with all of the hotspots here in Lisbon, but in fact it didn't. But we only realized that after installing it, and it was a tough install. So basically, if we would have had this feature, it would be clear that we would not be able to reach Lisbon from this location because of these hills.
Got it. And so just to make sure we're seeing that, because not everyone is super conversant with maps and contour lines and elevation, is what we're looking at there is those hotspots that are on the coast are basically down on a plateau, and there's a bluff or a hill or whatever it is that is denoted by that line where it starts getting super green.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then when in doubt, you can also go to the Google Earth. So
sure.
Yeah. All right. So the workspace, you have the overview dashboard of some aggregated statistics. And then you have some attentions lists, which are quite useful to basically monitor your hotspots and seeing, okay, this one is currently syncing. This one is relayed. You might want to prioritize going over there and solving the problem, etc. So the wallets shows you like if it's verified or not. We can talk about it later. Tracked. It is also possible to add wallets. Let's say that you have a wallet that you use for paying out your hosts, but it doesn't. You don't really want to deal with the hotspots within. You just want to track the amount. You can add a wallet and then uncheck this, and then it basically will basically show up here the amount. Actually, let's do that. Let's do whatever blue. this one, that's one hotspot, and we tick it off. Now you see that there's 5 hotspots, and the result will be that there's still 5 hotspots, but then there's this new wallet being added, and it has a balance of 0, but it could have been more. And then if you go to the dashboard, you see the distinction between the untracked wallets and the tracked wallets, and then the
Very
total
cool.
balance. You can also actually label your wallets, which is a pretty neat way of distinguishing them on the map. So let's say that you call it my hotspots. It provides you a label. So if now you go to your hotspots, then the ones from that wallet, they are distinguished here. So if you click it, you only see those. If you actually go here to the map, then you can also filter over here. So if now you click here, then you'll see that these are all the hotspots from that wallet because they're filtered over here.
Ah, cool. Okay. Super cool. Well, you guys are just finding problems and solving them. This is rad.
Yeah, it's a true experience, right? Because we use the tool as well.
Yeah.
We're like, oh shit, this is too cumbersome to achieve this particular need or use case, and then we find ways to make it easier. But they're all kind of hidden. That's the thing. We're working on documentation as well, and a video like this is also useful for people to see it. There's a lot of these things actually available, like filters here. You can filter on all of the hotspots that are verified in this area. So like right now none, but that has another reason because I'm using a local host, but this is production. So if now you go to hotspots, go to verified, these are all the hotspots that are verified.
Okay, and just let's pause on that. So verification is basically the hotspot or the wallet owner sends to Hotspotty some nominal sum, 0.1, 0.2, whatever it is, HNT. And that proves that you're the owner of that wallet. So you're verified. So then you can be anonymously contacted. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So
okay.
Let's actually go to this one, like verified, click on this one. It's this hotspot. If you then go to contact owner, then you're able to send a message to the hotspot. And if you do that, what will happen is basically the message will show up. So if you're actually the owner of this hotspot, then this will not say contact owner. It will say inbox with the number of messages that were received. And then you see the message along with the Discord handle of the sender. And because of that, it's at the receiver's discretion to contact that person or not, because that way we don't really leak who is actually the owner. We just pass the message and we leave it up to them to act on it.
I was going to say, Max, it's also possible to send messages to hotspots that aren't verified yet, and then if that person looks at their hotspot, they can see the amount of messages that have been sent to that hotspot. So it encourages people to unverify it. So let's say, Nick, you've got, I don't know, like 10 hotspots or whatever, and you haven't verified yet. Then you click on one of these, and maybe 5 people have contacted you. You can see that there's 5 messages pending, queued, and that will encourage people to verify their wallets, to also to uncover those messages and also to collaborate. So we tried to build it in such a way to really encourage collaboration on the network.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. I hadn't realized how valuable that was until we started talking and kind of thinking about how do you work with other people to make sure that you're clearing Res 8 hexes, or that you're getting the appropriate kind of optimal deployment patterns and covering area. This is a super high value add. So well done.
So let's actually illustrate it. So this hotspot is not verified. It will show a badge if it's verified. So either you actually click on it, because it might be mine, right? I didn't verify the wallet perhaps, but so that shows the option for people who actually own this hotspot. But then I can also send a message. So this is production. Let's just say, hey, just wanted to test this feature. Send a message. What happens now is basically there's an inbox now, 1 message received. You can unlock it by verifying the wallet. So if, let's say that I'm gonna add this to my workspace. So I'll just open a new workspace. Wait, I'm just gonna copy this, like Nick's test workspace. It's from last time.
Yep.
So just jumping around. So this is the same hotspot, Nick's test workspace. Let's add one wallet. Let's add this whole wallet. Then I go to the workspaces dashboard. Then you'll see at the bottom, normally this should show a list of the hotspots that received the message.
Yep.
But they are not yet verified. So it's currently not working. I don't know why.
So with this one, because we'd set this up last week, is I shifted into another workspace. I'm like, I'll just keep this one as a test, and I'll verify it on the other workspace and keep that one private. But no, very cool. So basically, you can not have to sign up at all and see that your hotspot has a message. And if you want to read the message, then you just verify your wallet, which still protects your anonymity pretty darn well, because it's just tied to an email or Discord handle that is whatever you want. And then you can communicate with other people. Okay, very cool.
Maybe we can just quickly go through the verification process, Maxine, as we've talked about it so much.
Yeah, okay. So let's say that this hotspot has received a message and it's mine, and I want to read the message. So then you basically click on verify wallet here, but you can also go in your workspace and go to the wallet and then go to the actions and then do it from there. But let's go do it from here. So basically it's going through a step-by-step process where it tells you exactly how it works. And basically in order to verify your wallet, so basically for us, in order to know that you really own this or basically control this wallet, we need you to send a small donation, and therefore we can monitor if that transaction went through over a given period of time, starting from when I press continue. And then we can basically validate your claim. So in this case, I have 24 hours to send a transaction. And how to do that is you open the Helium Wallet app, press the QR code thing, and you just scan this thing. It will populate exactly the amount that you said you're going to donate. And then you just press send, and then the whole process will automatically verify your wallet.
Yep, I did this. This is super easy. Yeah, if you can't do this, then you can't participate in Helium. I mean, it was ultra easy.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys did a good job of making that stuff easy. Okay, so you verify or not verify your wallet, and now you can look at a couple of things in your wallet. You can receive messages, but there's some stuff that's publicly available that I thought was really important to dig into. One of them is that little pie chart graph that shows you where you're earning from it. This is I think the first place I'd seen this where I didn't have to like plug stuff into an Excel file and then create a pie chart and pull from tables. It was just really easy to see. And it brings up an important point as far as how important it is to be a witness versus beaconing or creating challenges.
Yeah, exactly. So that's here. So you can see this at the hotspot level. If you click on any hotspot, like I'm just going to click this one in the rewards section, you can see the rewards by type. And this is like the pie chart of the earnings and where they're coming from. And then in the workspace itself, you can see this aggregated over all of your hotspots. You can also see this over more hotspots if you choose to do so by clicking here on the bottom right on the region dashboard, which basically shows the same dashboard, but then for all of the hotspots within this region. And so basically there's a bigger data set applied to this. So witnessing makes up 74% in this area of the rewards. Yes.
Cool. And that's in line with what Helium has posted as far as how it's supposed to work, is 75%-ish goes to witnessing, and what is it, like 20% or something like that goes to beaconing, and the last little piece is just for challenges. So I'm guessing the bigger the region, the closer those numbers are going to be to what's actually supposed to happen. The smaller it is, the more likely are variations.
And then I guess towards the future, the data credit is going to start increasing. Because right now it's like nothing. Right?
Yeah. Cool. That was another cool thing is that you guys had done, gosh, there's so many cool things here. You've done a really good job of making it clear about the area covered by a hexagon, right? Is that most people, when they're looking at hexes, they only look at one resolution. So Helium uses a bunch of different hexagons of different sizes. Those sizes are called resolutions. Most people just look at resolution 8, which is the most commonly viewed size, which is, I don't know, what is it, 1,000 meters across, something like that. But there's a bunch of different resolutions, and each one of them is made up of each hexagon is made up in actuality of all the children hexagons of it. And so this can be a really confusing point for people when they're looking at scale, especially on the edges of any hexagon, and particularly on Res 4 hexagons in really densely populated places, is you can think you're inside a giant Res 4 hex, but you can be outside of it because the children hexes of that hex, just like this image here, are
I mean, that's how we learned, because in early stages of development, it actually was a whole hexagon. And then we were testing and we put hotspot like in the edge just to test, and it didn't change the rewards. Like, wait, what? Something's wrong. And then we like, maybe the code is wrong, maybe the location of the hexagons are wrong. And then we actually got in touch with the people who wrote the H3 library. And then they explained that like, it's not one big hexagon, it's just like a combination of them, right, makes it bigger ones.
Yeah, so I'm seeing one big yellow one and then a couple smaller green and yellow ones. Can you explain what I'm looking at there?
Yeah, so basically, so if you click, for example, on hotspot, then you go to reward scaling, there's a whole explanation of how the proof coverage rewards actually work and what is HIP 15, what is HIP 17, etc. I advise you to read it. But then basically HIP 17 uses these hexagons to provide you with a number, the transmit scale. And on each hotspot, here you see basically the resolutions they're part of. So resolution 10, if you click on it, it's a very tiny hex. It's this one. If you now go back and you see, for example, resolution 7, then it's a bigger hex. So basically, HIP 17 is going to look at all of these hexes of your hotspot that is part of, and then each of these hexes has like a certain allowance to support the redundancy of hotspots in that area that are based on the algorithm required. And if there's an excess of hotspots in a particular hexagon, that's basically what's going to kick in the transmit scale to go down. And what we basically show here is from all of the parent hexes that this hotspot is part of, the ones outlined in red are the ones that are basically the ones that are causing the problems. So in this case, there's 2. So if you click on resolution 8, you'll see that this one has a color, and the color corresponds with, well, how good or how bad the situation is. The green one is better than the red one, for example. And then these are also the ones that you see here in the hexes tab. So currently we're looking at this one. So if you close this, the hexes view is going to showcase all of those problematic hexes at the different resolutions that are making this list of, or this area of hotspots, not all green, basically. So if you come here, you see all of the colored hotspots. Going to the appearance settings, you can see that they're colored based on the transmit scale. So the yellow ones are the ones that are, we call them mediocre, between 0.5 and 0.75. So if they would all be green and all be 1, then there would not be any hexagon around. So if you go, for example, if you look in this area, they're all green, there's no hexes.
Yep.
So this basically shows you which ones can actually be improved. And then we also guide you towards how you can actually improve these regions. And you can also filter on these resolutions. So you only want to see the resolution 6, there's none. So you only want to see resolution 8, there's these ones. Yeah, I'll stop here. If there's any questions. Maybe
I'm missing, how is it choosing which hexes to highlight? Like I'm seeing a couple smaller greens and smaller yellows inside that larger yellow. Is that hexes that are in this wallet, or is that something else?
No. So basically, all of the hexes you're seeing here, the ones that are colored, they represent hexes that are saturated, that basically are causing a transmit scale to go below 1.
Okay, so the Res 4 is overscaled in Lisbon, so the whole thing is scaled
Yeah,
off of that.
it's
Okay.
pretty bad. Yeah.
Everything is said, yes.
Yeah, so if you go, you can actually click on the Res 4 and then see what the situation is. So
Yep.
it takes a while because these things have to be calculated, but there's 226 too many in this area.
Oh, very cool. You guys have done such a good job of making this really clear. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, because it was always like, oh, how many am I over by, and which, what scales or what resolution am I getting scaled at, and what is the scale for that specific resolution, and how does it affect all of the resolutions above and below it? Because as I'm understanding it, every resolution gets its own scale assigned to it, and then those scales are all multiplied by each other. So if you have a
Yes.
scaled at Res 4 at say 0.5 and scaled at Res 8 at 0.5, then your total scale will be 0.25 because it's 0.5 times 0.5.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you can also turn that on and off in the appearance settings. I don't know if Max covered that earlier.
Yeah, so right now we're in the hex step, so you're gonna see all of them unless you start filtering them to like only Res 4, for example, in this case.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in the hotspots view, by default, it's turned off. But if you want to actually see it, you can turn it on here, like problematic hexes, and then it will overlay these hexes. But it can become really like chaotic, especially with the growth of the network. So by default, it's turned off.
The too close to witness is also pretty cool, huh? With the red lines.
Yeah, so witnesses are basically not counted towards the rewards if they're done from too close of a distance from each other. The way we visualize it is with red lines if you enable this layer. So yeah, you can see the ones that basically, these for sure, they're going to witness each other, but they're not going to get rewarded for it. And it's a neat little visualization of this. And if you go to like larger cities, it's a color book, right?
Okay. Hey, let me make sure I'm understanding that. So basically every line that comes from a hotspot and connects to another hotspot indicates that it will not be witnessed. They won't witness each other. They're too close.
They will witness,
Exactly.
but the witness will not provide you with any rewards.
Earnings. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
That's further confirmed in the actual hotspot, right? When you go on the witnesses.
You can click here and then go to the witnesses and then actually click on invalid witnesses, for example, or as a transmitter, as a witness. You click on it and then these are the red ones. So you can come here, for example, this guy, invalid witnesses 0. So maybe it's not actually witnessing them. God knows. Like you don't know if the hotspot is really there, but
sure,
you can see it in the data. Yeah.
Okay. So super powerful tools, lots and lots of options, lots of kind of rad ways to use it. And really what I'm seeing and what I saw when I started diving in is like, okay, I've got to set aside some time, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, to basically just click on every single thing in the screen and figure out what it does. And I didn't think there was anything in there that was mysterious, but there sure is a lot there. How would you guys use it to assess? Can you walk me through how you might assess a new location? You can pull whatever location you're thinking of and maybe walk me through a real world or a test use case.
Yeah, to be honest, this is a conversation we should have in a later phase, because it's part of the things we're working on that are currently incomplete. We do allow for an accurate estimation, basically an accurate representation of how the transmit scale of your location will be. So if I, for example, go to locations, I add one. So it's this location, and if you click on it, you'll see that the reward scale, basically, if you would place a hotspot in this place, this would be the resulting transmit scale. So if you actually have several locations in the same area, and there's not a lot of, there's basically no hotspots around, and you're just planning your own hotspots in an area, by doing that, you can basically see what the resulting hex impacts will be, and you can actually simulate. Like right now, if I click this, it's gonna impact the simulations also for these hotspots. So it's maybe I can do like another location which is very close by.
Okay, so takeaway here is that you can look at a new location, and instead of guessing what the transmit reward scale will be once you deploy, say, 6 hotspots into that location, you can have a much better idea, as long as no one else is deploying them at the same time you don't know about, but a much better idea of what you can expect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this, I just placed 2 locations, like, who are literally next to each other.
Yep.
And here you can see that it introduced a new hex that's problematic, and the reward scale is very low. And if you then basically toggle it off, then you see that the reward scale of this is like 0.44. But then if I turn this on again, it's going
to cut it in half to be 2.2. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You can also import thousands of locations and then sort by the best reward scale. So actually, reward scale, as much as Max is correct, we haven't finished some other assessment. We're going to be working on line of sight. We are looking at RF as well, but we also think line of sight is also a very practical way of assessing locations. But as Max can see on this screen, let's say you've got 100 locations, you can sort it by the best reward scales and toggle them on and off from here. But then we're also going to have another. You'll be able to see the predicted witnessing based on the location as well. So we can estimate the rewards and stuff. But yeah, sorry, Max is just showing how we can import batch. We can import thousands of locations.
So this is like a KML, a Google Earth file that contains some locations in this area as well. So if I just import the file, it will automatically compute the transmit scales, and you can sort by them.
Okay.
Yeah, and it also adds a label based on the name of your hotspot, so you can sort. You can basically filter on them or remove them all together based on that. So they will show up in the map. And actually you can then download them as well. So let's say that you go to the workspace locations. This includes those 2 addresses, Rio da Prata 80 and 82. So if now I export locations, it provides you with a CSV file and also KML file. So if now I go to Earth,
you can plug it in Google Earth.
What it will do is, it's basically based on the transmit scales, it will show those locations and color them based on the color of the transmit scale. So I don't know, projects, I don't know exactly where it is. New projects.
Interesting. Okay, so you can kind of pass data back and forth pretty quickly between Hotspotty and Google Earth, and then you can do whatever it is that you want to do with that. And Google Earth, they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. There's one thing that you had said, Alexis, about the line of sight versus RF. Can we just tap on the difference between that pretty briefly and help people understand? One of the most common misunderstandings is that they think a simulation is the real thing, or that it should be, within 2% accurate, and that in part because RF is weird, and in part because it's just real life versus simulation doesn't always work. But can you talk about the different models of this line of sight versus RF simming?
Yeah, it's it's a hard question. So basically with Hotspotty, although it's quite powerful, we're always looking for ways to make it simple for the end user.
Yep.
And RF modeling is quite complex under the hood. Even for users, it requires you to make choices between what frequency are you operating on, what antenna are you going to do, and all of that stuff in order to actually get an output. So both will allow you to assess if from a given location at a particular height, if your hotspot is going to perform well or bad. It will give you an estimate of that. Both can do that. But then one uses mathematical models and topographical data, about the buildings around and the reflection, and that's basically with RF. You can model it quite accurate, but that also assumes that the data is correct, right? There's a lot of data that's not really correct. For example, hotspots, they're not actually where they are in many occasions. So if you have a very advanced model that takes into account reflections and all of that, and maybe the error will be maybe a bit bigger, the error margin. And then there's also rural areas that have very few data available for the RF modeling. So if you're like operating in here, and this is an area with a lot of mountains, and there's not really data available about the reflection patterns of the trees that are in that area, etc., then even an RF model will not really give you an accurate representation of the visibility from a particular location. So what we basically saw from real life, the deployment of our hotspots, and also comparing these RF models with what we see in reality, is that if your hotspot is on top of a hill and you're there and you're installing it and you can see as far as the horizon can see, it is most certainly gonna witness a lot of hotspots.
Yep.
That is in the range of your actual view. On the other hand, like this hotspot, for example, is obstructed with this hill, right? I don't know if it's this one or this one. Actually, it shouldn't really matter.
This hotspot was a pain in your guys' ass, huh?
Yeah, it was, man. Max almost died in that install, right? It's very tough.
So as you can see, like it cannot witness any of these hotspots. So the reason is simple. There's a hill, and the hill blocks the signals. It's not more complicated than that. But basically, assessing this location using line of sight would simply give the same outcome. It would tell you, look, it's not going to happen unless you put this on a very tall pole, and that's basically what we're going to do. Is we are going to calculate the ability to connect to all of these hotspots based on the locations, and even the locations you're assessing yourself. And if there's a clear line of sight based on the calculations, we assume you're going to connect. If not, we assume you're not going to connect. And is it perfect? Of course, it's not perfect, but at least it's something. And
so it's simple and fast and accurate enough. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
I think, in my experience, it can be more accurate than RF simulation, and it's much simpler to understand as well, right?
I think the speed that you picked up on is very important. Just like we can import hundreds or thousands of locations and then sort them based on the best reward scales, we can, when you import those locations, there can also be a field within the comma delimited file or whatever that you input how high that install will be at above sea level.
Yep.
So it will then crunch all of those numbers very quickly, right? When you're doing the RF modeling, you have to do one by one. And I know, it can, if you get good at it, it can take maybe 5 seconds in between, like input, simulate, input. Sure. But actually with this, you upload them all, give it a height, and it blasts all of the calculations. So we think, in summary, we think this can be as accurate, if not perhaps more accurate. Even though the RF stuff is kind of a bit eye candy, right? You can also get a bit sucked into the the visualizations.
Cool.
So it's a different approach, but we think we're onto something that will kill quite a few birds with one stone, so to speak.
Yeah, and for power users, we can always provide both in the future, right? But we have to prioritize as well our efforts. So we decided to stick with that for the initial version of location assessment.
Love it.
Cool.
Love it. Can you show me go ahead?
Yeah, sorry. Ask.
I was going to say, can you show me the Discord piece? Because that was I just saw that this morning. Is that there's this ability to, open up a Discord channel for a given hex? And is that any hex size? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so let's actually go. You're in San Diego, right? I don't know if
True fact, yeah. You're in North San Diego, but yeah, this is close enough. I know this place.
Yeah, I think we are, but basically this is San Diego.
Yep.
So let's get a practical example. So let's filter the hexes. Let's zoom in. Okay, this one. Let's click on it. So basically these hotspots, they have a transmit scale less than 1. Because of this hex, like this will have another hex causing it, but these are most likely caused because of this hex. So here you basically see all of the hotspots in this hex, and you can also see like when they were actually added to this hex, what are their daily earnings? Like not so much in this case.
Sure.
And yeah, so let's try to actually solve this problem. So let's say your hotspot is one of them, and you want to solve the problem through collaboration. So there's different ways of doing this. One would be to contact the owner of other hotspots. Let's say like this guy is literally on the border, but maybe if he just asserts his location here, his hotspots here, it will solve the problem. It's like an easy fix, and it doesn't really haven't caused any issues to the network, because it's like 10 meters further. So it's not going to give a worse network quality or something. But then these people will have a better transmit scale. So that's like one example. Another example is like in Lisbon, for example, there's 266 too many hotspots in this whole area.
Yep.
You might want to start a movement and basically talk to people to start moving hotspots out of the region in another area and collaborate on the locations. Let's say we have hundreds of locations available, but we no longer ordered any hotspots. So we have these locations, we have these hosts that basically want to like collaborate in building this network, but we're not intending to place hotspots because it's not our core business anymore. So we could actually go there and we could say like, look guys, do you want to, who wants to put their hotspot there? I can provide locations, hosts that would be happy to do that. Yeah, just let's start the conversation. So that's another thing. And to facilitate that, we allow users to spawn a channel. But maybe let's do a step back. Is how do you actually solve this hexagon? So there's different strategies, and this gives you a good overview of what exactly is going on here. One strategy is very simple. Like the reason it's colored is because it exceeds the density limits. And so the easiest solution is just eliminate hotspots, right? If you have one too many, removing one will solve the problem. So we can
make it so much easier. So you don't have to understand that chain vars at res 7 are 2, 5, and 20, and that you don't have two siblings. You can just see, hey, there's one too many in this res 7. We got to move one of them out.
Exactly. And you can simulate it. So let's say I can press on it, simulating. So basically it's solved, the problem is solved. And then why? Because the worst performing hotspot was disabled. And then you can see which one. It's this one. And then you see that it's deactivated, similar to how I was showing it before. You can disable hotspots as well as locations for the reward scaling or transmit scaling. This should be transmit scale, by the way. Then you can then, now you know that this strategy works, so you can put it in practice. In this case, it's this one, right? It's light gray, which means that it's inactive. So you can undo the strategy, and then you'll see that it's back, it's green, and the problem is also back. That's one strategy. Another strategy is, and in practice, you could actually then, let's say that you do it again, and then you see that this particular hotspot, I don't know which one it was, but you can see that he's earning very little, and in reality, it's because he's providing very little value to this area. So you could basically click on this, go to this hotspot, contact the owner, drop him a message saying like, look, man, you're not really offering value. However, I can make your hotspot.
Yeah.
Like I can actually help you earn more, because there's other locations that don't have any coverage. I happen to have people that like would be happy to host, and I can introduce you, and you guys just figure out the profit share, and it's better for the network, it's better for you, and it's better for the host,
Yeah, love it. Okay.
So there's that. And then there's the strategy, which is a bit more advanced, but it's simplified using like this simulation button. So basically each hexagon has a target density, which is defined by these chain vars that you were referring to. But this density target can be elevated. And basically, like right now, you can put 5 hotspots. But if there's enough hotspots in the same area, it basically tells the algorithm that, look, if there's so many hotspots, there's probably also more people. And if there's more people, there's probably more need for the network. And therefore, we're going to allow you to put a bit more hotspots here to facilitate that. And you can basically resolve this issue in some cases. Some other areas are just like, you can't solve it anymore, but in this case you can, because it shows the strategy too.
Sure.
By actually adding more hotspots to peripheral
sure. Yeah, you put a hotspot on the 12 o'clock or the 10 o'clock.
Yes.
Hexes, it's going to take them up to 5, and that's going to give you the 2 siblings, and then you can put up to 10. And dude, this is rad. Yeah. Super cool. Yep.
So here it will tell you, for example, increase the limit by reaching the density target for at least one highlighted hex, neighbor hex below. So if you go to the neighbor hexes, these are like the ones ABC. These are basically showed here. Neighbor F already reached the target density. So neighbor F is this one, and you can see that there's more hotspots there, right? You can also just click on it, and then you go to that. But you can go back here. So you can click here and then see the hotspots and the status there. So so let's go back to neighbor hexes. So basically here you see that in order to solve the problem, you can see that reaching the target density, you can do that the easiest by targeting neighbor D or neighbor C, and because it only requires one hotspot to reach that target density. So you can actually simulate that, and we'll just pick the one that like is most convenient, and then showcase it by adding a location, like an assessment location, and just putting it there just to show what would be the impact. So let's do that. Like press simulate, and the problem is solved. And I saw one thing appear here. So this is it has a smaller ring around it, so it means it's a location, it's not a hotspot. And then it's basically saying that the density limit was increased by reaching the target density for neighbor hex C, this one, by adding one location in total. This was the least amount of added locations needed to improve the situation with strategy 2. And problem solved. So
super cool, guys. That's awesome. I mean, that takes something that can take people a while to get and just makes it easy.
And then there's a Discord channel as well, right?
Yeah, so let's actually attempt to do that. So undo strategy. So we know that this area can be resolved by doing that. So let's click on it, and then click on Discord collaboration, and then you can basically spawn a channel in Discord for this particular hexagon. So discuss in Discord. This just created a hexagon channel like this one. And it's, in this case, it's in staging. Shouldn't be like, just ignore it.
You can just get on, like, let's say, I think we have 2 regions in California. You got a SoCal region on the Helium Discord, and go over there and say, hey, anyone in the San Diego Res 7 by Lakeside, jump on over. I've got some stuff to talk to you about. Retains anonymity and makes it easy to clear things up. And you could also probably, because these Discord channels are on the Hotspotty server, they're not on the Helium server, right?
Yeah, actually, this is live as well. I just responded. My handle's Peshaboy. So if you go back, Max, I did actually. It has spawned it in the main one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Everyone can see this. So let's fix this hex, right? I mean, obviously, the idea is to actually do something meaningful.
Yeah. So there's, indeed. So here you can say, like, okay, so basically if you add one more hotspot here, we solve the problem in the area, and then you can link to the, like, if you click here, you're going to go to that particular hex page.
Yep. Oh, dig it. When I get off the call, I'll totally use this. I'll jump on a couple locations in San Diego and push this out, and then I'll put that in there.
And another thing is you can visually explore these things here on the map. So, like, even though this is not a problematic hex, it's outlined in blue. So that's clear. Basically, you can filter on with Discord channel. So click on it. You see only this one is available in the region, and you can see it on the map, right? You can also filter on your, like, my Discord channels. In this case, it's the same, but for, like, if you want to, monitor your hexes, potentially even areas where you're planning to put a lot of hotspots, and you want to prevent duplicate planning efforts by other people. You can spawn a hex, monitor it, talk to people.
And maybe I missed that. Can you see on this map which hexes have been spawned into Discord so you can see what has already been created? Or is that
Yes.
not there yet?
It's the blue one.
Yeah,
The blue
that's
one,
it.
okay.
That's the blue one. So if
So there's only one hex that's been spawned in San Diego so far.
yeah, so like with Discord channel is the filter, and it shows this one. But if you go to, I don't know, actually we could go to Discord itself. And then
can you delete those if you accidentally create one? Like, how are you guys going to manage it when every jackwagon and the brother creates their own
I
Res
guess
9?
it's in beta at the moment. We're also working on like a bot to clean it up. So if there's been no activity in a hex for a long period of time, we'll perhaps delete it. There are some limitations as well. I think there's 50 channels per category and 500 channels per server. So we recognize that this we may have some scalability, but at the same time, it's obviously quite powerful. So we want the community to try it out, and we'll find a way to facilitate it, basically.
We want to try and see what happens, what people like, and if it's valuable as well.
Fire
and
this
then
on the San Diego channel.
Maybe give like 24 hours, and then if nobody says anything, there's no point in keeping the channel open anyway, right?
Right.
Maybe a bit more than 24 hours.
Yeah,
we're still planning.
For the first message, like if you spawn a hex and you don't really do anything with it, it's unlikely that someone else is going to talk, right, by itself. So if you're the initiator and you're not really talking immediately, it makes sense to clean it up after 24 hours. You can always create a new one, right? So, and then, okay, so I looked at our server, and then there's one in Texas, Dallas. So let's just go there. So yeah, there's this one. So I don't know where it is, but yeah, somebody created this this little hex. So if you now go here, discuss in Discord, it should actually open the right channel. Yeah, this one. Nobody said anything, but you will be able to. Yeah.
And then, are you guys going to rename those channels so they're easier to find in your Discord, or is that up to whoever is the first, like the spawner, or how are you guys going to manage that?
Yeah, we use basically the country like prefix, and then the region, and then the city, and then the resolution. So we also know that, like here, at least which ones are for which country, but we don't expect people to like sift through all these things. In the end, if you're interested in a particular region, the best thing is to go to the Hexes tab, click on the Discord channel, and then you can basically see it. You can also disable the hotspots, so it's much clearer to see the.
I'm using this today. This is rad.
Yeah, it's
and we want to keep improving, right? Sorry.
Yeah. So I was going to say it's going to be driven via the app rather than driven by Discord, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Super cool. So that's a little bit about kind of looking at how you might not so much optimize a hotspot, but really assess a location as to whether it's going to be bad before you put it in, right? We didn't really do much with making sure it's good, but the first step is to make sure you're not adding to the problem, right? Before we try and optimize.
With the rewards.
And then they talk to you, right? How to do the proper install. Then they talk to you on how to do the proper install and use the right equipment.
Yeah, that's the great hope, is that we can all work together and make this thing awesome. So super cool for seeing this as stopping bad deployments, and also really cool to see you guys allow this collaboration piece. That's rad. And then the management side, I think for the bigger players is also going to be really helpful, seeing how all that stuff works. Now, we're September 16th today. Are the payout stuff ready? Because I've been waiting for that. Like, when can I use this to automate all this stuff?
It's getting there. It's not done yet. We're working because we decided to really think about it in a way that we can cover as much ground as possible, because there are so many different people who have different ways of paying, and then we want to try to be in a way that it makes sense and most people can use it. It's there. We're giving a lot of thought.
Yeah, as you can see from the Hotspotty app itself, we've there's a lot of detail in it, right? So all of this stuff has been thought out very meticulously. And we're speaking to hotspot deployers that have deploying hundreds and perhaps 500, but we're also speaking to people who are deploying thousands and even tens of thousands. So it's a bit later than we want to launch. having said that, as we've been describing, we're architecting it in such a way that it will scale as well. There's lots of different things, so we want to be able to cover quite a lot of stuff on launch, but then also it's architected in such a way that we can add contracts or any issues with taxation. There's quite a lot of stuff. Payments, right? It's quite a complex matter. So
yeah, I like to think that we're still early on the network,
Yeah,
so that's
super early.
We don't want to rush into something that's not gonna scale or be useful in the future.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Dig it, guys. Well, I think we at least touched on most of the stuff and did a little bit of a dive into a couple things. I'm super excited to see, to use this. Like I said, I'm going to spawn some San Diego channels today, or at least one. And also to see where it goes, because it's obvious you guys are really taking a lot of time and thinking about the problems and then solving the problems as they kind of come across your desk and doing it in a good, thoughtful way. So I'm appreciative that people like you are out there solving problems that I have, that I don't have the ability to do all this software crap. So I'm psyched you guys are doing it.
Rock on.
Good. I'm gonna
rock on, Wayne.
Yeah. That's awesome.